Welcome to the Real Estate Deep Dive with Paul D. Garrison from JP and Associate Realtors. Today we're going to be taking a look at home price appreciation. So let's start out with this chart from CoreLogic that shows year-over-year appreciation going back to January of last year. The key thing to keep in mind when reading this chart is that it's showing percentage increases. So what we're looking at is how fast are home prices increasing. Are they accelerating? Are they decelerating? So right now, it's a given that home prices nationally have been increasing. So think of that like a car going down the road. If it's going forward, then prices are going up. They're increasing. So what we want to look at is the overall trend. Are they accelerating like a car pulling away from a green light, or are they decelerating like a car pulling up towards a red light? This helps give us an idea of the direction of the market. So looking back at this chart, we see that in January of 2021, we were seeing about a 10% increase in home prices compared to where they were in January of 2020. Then like a car pulling away from a green light, we saw home prices increase quicker compared to the same time in 2020. Now we see that they did start to level off and even decelerated a little bit in August to September, but as of November, we're seeing them starting to accelerate again. So that's the trend nationally. Let's take a look at what's happening at more of a local level. This is a chart of the average sales price across the last 3 years for DFW broken out by county. The reason I'm breaking it out by county is that it helps us see trends based on these different markets. When working with the client, I start out at a higher level to help identify the trends and then zoom down to the city, zip code, and sometimes even the specific neighborhoods. But for the purposes of this video, I will keep it at the county level. One more important thing to note is that local data we get access to much quicker than we do the national data. It takes some time to aggregate the national data. So you'll notice a difference when comparing trends. Now looking at this chart, we see it's telling 3 different stories. One for Collin and Denton counties, one for Tarrant County, and another one for Dallas County. Now let's look at the section I've circled here in red. All 4 counties experienced the same plateau we saw in the national numbers, but it impacted each county differently. Collin and Denton counties stayed fairly level and have recently seen a jump in prices, while Tarrant County has stayed fairly level throughout the whole time period. Dallas County actually saw a drop in their average sales price and is yet to return to that higher point. Now, you know from our previous deep dive videos, supply and demand are the 2 major forces impacting home prices. So let's take a look at the numbers of homes for sale over the last 3 years in DFW broken down by county. We see an overall trend that the number of homes for sale, the supply, has dropped pretty significantly over the last 3 years. As expected, the more population dense areas, Dallas and Tarrant counties, have had a larger number of listings available for sale than, say, Collin and Denton County. So we can see the supply is pretty much at a record low right now. One of the best ways to look at buyer demand is looking at the number of showings per listing. So this chart does just that across DFW broken out by county for the last 3 years. Note the sudden uptick in the number of showings in the last few months. Again, we're at a record high for the last 3 years. So we're at record low in supply and we're at a record high in demand. Another important metric to look at is the average percentage of the original list price. Again, we're looking at DFW broken out by county over the last 3 years. This helps give you a perspective on how competitive each market is getting for buyers and the amount of pressure on home prices. One interesting thing to note, during the time period where we saw the plateau nationally, we see a corresponding drop in the percentage for all 4 counties. Now we also see that all 4 counties see a sharp increase in the percentage leading up to February. It's important to remember the timing difference in the local data versus the national data. We're able to see more recent data at the local level than at the national level. That's why we're seeing this sharper uptick than what we saw at the national level. Also, the interesting note is that Dallas was the only county that its average percentage dropped below 100%. Just as it's good to get a second opinion, it's good to look at more than one source when studying trends. Here are 3 main resources that we look at for year-over-year home price appreciation. They're the Federal Housing Finance Agency House Price Index, the S&P Case-Shiller U.S. National Home Price Index, and CoreLogic's Home Price Insights Report. You may be asking, why are the numbers different? It comes down to they look at slightly different areas of the market, that some include things that others don't, and they report at different times. So with that in mind, let's take a quick look at them compared to each other going back to January of 2001. So the green line is CoreLogic, which is what we looked at earlier in more detail. The other two lines seem to follow similar trends, but with a more notable period of deceleration. This was noted in this quote from Craig Lazare. This is the highest calendar year increase in 34 years of data, substantially ahead of 2020's 10.4% gain. For the past several months, home prices have been rising at a very high but decelerating rate. The deceleration paused in December as indices were slightly ahead of their November levels. As you can tell, home prices have changed differently across the nation. Here's a map from FHFA that shows the changes over the last year by state. Nationally, we averaged 17.5%, and Texas was at 19.3%, or just a bit above the national average, with Idaho, Utah, Arizona, and Florida all seeing increases over 25%. So let's look at the change in prices over the last 5 years. The national average was 54.5%, with Texas being right there at 54%. This time we see Idaho leading the way at 118.2% change over 5 years. So the average home in Idaho more than doubled in 5 years. Let's take a look even further back. This map shows the change in prices since 1991. The national average is 258%, with Texas being above average again at 292%. Now we're seeing that Utah actually saw the highest increase at a whopping 556.1% since 1991, with the lowest being Connecticut at only 127.6%. I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to address what's going on in Ukraine and the people's concerns about how it might affect the housing market. First, I want to say that my heart goes out to all the people of Ukraine, the ones fighting to protect their country, and ones that may be here or another place around the globe, but still have loved ones that are in the middle of this conflict. There are 2 points I'd like to address around its effect on the housing market. First, that this conflict and what's happening in the stock market appear to have had a slowing effect on the rise of interest rates. Secondly, I wanted to say that there are no experts that I'm following that say that this is going to have a negative impact on home prices. Along those lines, I wanted to finish up this deep dive by taking a look at what these experts are forecasting for home price appreciation in 2022. You can see the average is 6.13%, with the highest being 9.6%. I personally think we will likely end up on the high side, somewhere between 8 to 10% appreciation for the year. Many of the metrics and numbers in this presentation are based off of the national real estate market. However, local areas can vary. Please give me a call and we can discuss your situation. Have questions about your specific needs or location? Please contact me at 214-683-8188 or paul@pauldgarrison.com. Want more information about the housing market and related issues? Be sure and check out my blog at www.pauldgarrison.com. Thank you for your time. Please take a moment to visit our website at www.pauldgarrison.com.